Good afternoon, I'm Kingsley Purdham, and I've been thinking about what it means to be an academic, and I started to think about The Invisible Man. And so this is a very old film, and it's about a scientist who makes himself disappear.
Bandages right up to the top of his head, all round his ears.
Laura's worried about Griffin.
I had a terrible feeling last night. I thought he was in desperate trouble.
He meddled in things men should leave alone. Not the slightest clue. That's where the clues are. He wasn't leaving anything to chance. There must be a way back.
Anyway, that's enough of that joke. It's about 2 minutes. It's quite interesting actually to think about a scientist that makes himself disappear. Lots of academics are encouraged to have a public profile, and I think that is something that's still subject to debate, and not everyone's comfortable with that, and I'm not necessarily. I'm based in social statistics, so I'm a lecturer there, and I just wanted to share this quote which came from some research a PhD student did about academics on social media, and this academic used the word clueless 4 times in one quote. And they said, on social media most of my colleagues make me laugh because they are so clueless. Clueless first about research dissemination. They think the work is over when they hand the final proofs to the publisher, when in fact that's when the real work begins. Do you think I got those 8,000 citations from being an academic genius? Question mark. No, from relentless online promotion, though of course you have to have a product good enough quality for promotion to work. And second, clueless about social media. They think it's some dumb thing for their kids. Long may they remain clueless. Makes it easier for me to raise my profile compared to them. And that's a rather engaging anthropology professor, not necessarily based at Manchester, but that really got me thinking about, well, he's really challenging the way academics work there. So I was just going to talk a little bit about some of the dissemination and impact research I've been involved in, and I think it's a very different thing, dissemination and impact, and that's something to consider. So this goes back to 2002, and we did some research for the Electoral Commission, and so this was a high quality colour publication, and there was about 1,000 copies, and in 2002 we've no real idea of the impact it had. No media coverage. We know it was used by the Electoral Commission in their offices, and some of us after that part of the research team went to stand on committees or inquiries. So we got some sense of impact, but we had no real way of monitoring, and there was no media, no social media around that. So that's more than a decade ago. More recently, I've been doing some work on food insecurity. So this is just a summary website, and that's obviously a key calling card when you decide to launch your own website, and having some useful high resolution images, which these are taken by us. Quite often, if you're possible, take your own images, much easier to use. And so we write a conference paper about that and present it. We then try and publish a journal article, and we managed to get one through. We write a blog about it. We're running these Twitter feeds, which we deliberately build up a following ahead of time, and so when we've got something to launch, we feel like there is an audience there. We write a newsletter article, and that gets sent out to maybe 1,000 practitioners, academics, as part of our research centre. Make a YouTube film. This was with some funding, so that's a school level or faculty level resource. We then do a policy event, and we have a live drawing of some of the issues raised in the talk, and that took some preparation with the animators. You can watch that. That's perhaps a different way of trying to tell a story. We work with the University Press Office, so there's a press office press release about the research and about some follow-on research, and then I end up on BBC News, and then the Manchester Evening News cover the research, and they mention you by name and some of your quotes. And there's a sense of dropping everything to this process. So this is an example where I'm just about to go and teach, and you get an email from someone in the press office, and then it's perhaps easier just to go straight to the journalist. And then about 2:30 on this day, I'm got my mobile phone on in the lecture and I check it, and this person from ITN says, can you come in? And so perhaps you shouldn't be checking your phone when you're teaching, but you are. So that's an issue of what kind of academic you are, and how important these things are. But so at 3:30 I get picked up, and I'm at Media City for 4, and I'm back here 4:30. So in the taxi I've written the 3 or 4 things I want to say. But so it's a very quick process, but it's kind of a drop everything process. And then from the publications, the research gets cited in a House of Lords debate. So this for me is perhaps the most interesting. The other bit is kind of, do you have to do it? So here are research and some of the quotes. So some of these quotes from people visiting food banks have made it onto Hansard. So that's a real positive outcome for us, and that's what we'd see as impact rather than dissemination. Now we don't know what the government's response to this was, but that's what we'd see as impact. A second study is of PhD students, and her work was on migrant doctors to the UK. So this is like a 3-year study, and there was very little attention to it in our view, but the student wrote a blog with the supervisors, and it quickly turned into the most popular blog in the sense of most accessed or most visited blog on policy at Manchester, about 1,000 visits. And so this student, as a follow-up, ended up on her local TV station in Sheffield, and you can watch that video. This is some work ongoing at the moment. This is citizen social science, so this is an example where things can take different forms. So this is kind of like our website calling card, and we managed to get some of the work published in a journal, so that's the order that took. And then we had some events around that, and there's a policy event which the public could come to, but it was mainly aimed at practitioners. And then an event at the Museum of Science and Industry, which is up and coming. And so that's all well and good, but it does take some time, so I must have sent about 10 emails to try and get some university sweat tops, or who's got some pens. So it is time intensive in terms of accessing the resources you might want. And then obviously your profile and follow-on funding can be developed from getting some kind of dissemination around your project. It can help build your reputation, and perhaps then research funders or people looking to, for someone to work on a particular project come and find you. Sorry, going a bit quick here. But you always need to be prepared for the unexpected. So we did this project on sharing. It was a very different way of working, and 6 months in advance, the date and time and location was set for the press launch. So that's a very different way of working in relation to academics, or at least the way a lot of academics work at the moment in my experience. So they're always working to this immovable date where they've booked the TV studio, and that went ahead all as planned, but it certainly puts pressure on the research process. And the dissemination was a short report, but there was also the invitation to go on Sky, on the sofa, Sky News sofa. So at 8 o'clock, I got a text to say, can you go on the sofa with Eamon Holmes? And you think, oh crikey, right. And then at 9 o'clock I get a text saying, didn't say don't worry, it said, sorry, Eamon Holmes, someone else there, have someone else. So you go through all that rebooking your hotel, your travel, these kind of things, and this is another example of kind of being prepared to drop everything, and having a kind of light-hearted approach to kind of changing your plans where possible. But there are lots of challenges, I think, in relation to this and being an academic. So do you want a kind of public campaign around your research to disseminate it? Not all research is appropriate for that. Do you plan the campaign? Really important. Do you set dates, concrete dates? Other ways that are linked directly with your stakeholders. Make the most of the university press office. So you're sort of pitching your research to them, because they've probably got a long list of research that they can choose to put their resources to. Also go direct to the policymakers and the media. So on one project, we sent copies of our own book to people we thought would read it and were influential. So we sent it to 100 influential people, whether it was a member of the House of Lords or a member of a government committee or a particular journalist. So that was really targeted. And then in your interviews, I think you've always got to assume you won't get more than about 30 seconds to say what you want to say. So it's best to have 3 things to say. If it's live, 30 seconds is probably the maximum. If it's recorded, then it might be there for 10 minutes, and you might get the sense of which the journalist is waiting for you to say the exact sentence that they want to use, and you might stay there till you say that sentence. But so you've always got to be cautious about that, and you've really got to say what is in the parameters of your research. Try not to go beyond that. So what kind of academic are you? And I think that's to debate. I don't think what the academic who talked about being clueless is being very fair, because people are academic in different ways, and there are other ways to be an influential academic. And one way we've used is through government select committees and their calls for evidence. So that doesn't involve sitting on the Sky News sofa. That involves keeping track of the calls for evidence for government select committees, which are online, and then submitting your 2,000 or 3,000 words. And you may get invited into that select committee, and that is televised, but that isn't really dissemination in the public sense, because the audience figures are low. It's more a case of targeting the policymakers and the decision makers about that. Okay. Have a watch of The Invisible Man. It's pause for thought.